Hey everybody! I wanted to do something a little bit different today. For one, I have this nice couch in my office as a backdrop that I actually wanted to sit on. And two, I was talking to someone in my program, the Pumping for Working Moms program, about a schedule. And I mentioned yeah, you can find all of these kind of pumping schedules on Pinterest. And then I thought, I wonder what schedules are actually on Pinterest. So let's jump on Pinterest today and I'm going to type in pumping schedules and let's talk about the good, the bad, the crazy. I'm hoping that I find some good stuff on here and we can have some really positive things, but a little bit of me doubts it. So let's try this, okay? So I'm gonna pull up my screen for you and we're just gonna type in pumping schedule. We might have to narrow it down to with breastfeeding because I'm guessing a lot of these will be for exclusive pumping. Let's just click on the very first one that we see here, okay? This is an exclusive pumping schedule. It looks like birth to 12 months. So birth to 3 months, 8 times per day, has some numbers here. It looks like it's just 3 hours around the clock. 3 to 6 months, you can do 6 pumps per day. I don't know if I really agree with that. I guess it depends on your supply. I would probably do a little bit more than that, but whatever. 6 to 9 months, 4 pumps per day. Wow, that's ambitious. 2 pumps per day by 9 months. Wow. If you do that and you don't have an oversupply, that may be a problem. That's not enough times to be expressing milk per day to keep up a decent supply unless you have a lot. That's just my 2 cents on that one. Here's another one, sample pumping schedule for a newborn, 8 to 12 sessions per day, 15 minutes, and then they've got a recommended schedule. Looks like they're still having you pump through the night, which is a really good idea for the first few months of your baby's life. Really 12 weeks is kind of the general thing for me. We need to be feeding or pumping through the night for those first 12 weeks especially. After that, we can kind of look at your supply and see if your baby starts sleeping through the night. Maybe we can stop pumping at night. The working moms that I work with, about 12 weeks is when you go back to work. It's a delicate time to be messing with your supply because now you're dealing with work pumping, which is difficult. Even if you were pumping at home before, pumping at work is different. So sometimes we usually get into a good groove at work and then talk about dropping the nighttime pump or feeding. Most of the moms I'm working with are doing combination breastfeeding, pumping, so they're not often pumping at night. They're usually breastfeeding at night and stuff like that. So 4 to 6 months, 5 to 6 sessions per day. They increase the time. So they increase the time per session and decrease the number of sessions. That's not a bad idea. If you do want to end up dropping a session, I think 4 months is probably a little bit early for me to do that, but that's just my opinion. If you do end up dropping a session, it can be a good strategy to put those extra minutes in throughout your day, as long as you're pumping well. And then by 6 months, they have it 3 to 4 sessions per day for 20 minutes. But then their sample schedule has 5 times plus 1 to 2 times at night. So this is actually from Willow. So I don't even know what they're thinking. This schedule makes no sense to me, to be honest, and I think it's nonsense. But let's see if we can find a good one on here. Pumping schedule, wake up and power pump, 6 a.m., 8 a.m. pump, 10 a.m. pump / power pump, 12 pump. Oh my gosh, this is every 2 hours. Holy cow. 10 p.m. pump, 12 p.m. extra pump. That's midnight, folks. Oh my gosh. That's insane. Please don't do that. That's a lot. I like this one better. Starting with 8 pumps a day. This is exclusive pumping again. By 5 to 6 months, they're at 6 pumps a day. I think you really need to base it more on your own milk supply and not a schedule that you find on Pinterest. 11 months, 2 pumps a day. This might be based on the fact that you have created an oversupply in the beginning and you have lots of milk at your disposal to feed the baby backup. So I don't know. If you still want to be producing enough to feed an 11-month-old baby, you're going to need more than 2 pumps a day. I just don't see how that is going to work. Okay, let's narrow this down, okay? Let's do pumping schedule while breastfeeding. Here's an interesting one. I'm going to look at it a little closer, but just a first glance. Breastfeeding and pumping schedule. Newborn breastfeeding and pumping to establish a strong supply. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, it's a big pet peeve of mine when we tell breastfeeding moms that are breastfeeding fine that you have to pump in addition to breastfeeding to have a good supply. I just do not agree. I made a video, I'll put it up top for you, that said like, stop pumping. And it's funny, the comments on that video are really hit and miss. Some people are like, I really needed to hear this because I've been pumping and I actually don't need to or even want to. I just thought you had to. And then some people are really like, that's crazy. You have to pump. Like, I started pumping right away and I couldn't have done it any other way. I had to have milk in the freezer for my mental health, and the pump saved me and stuff. And I think that's great too. Like, pumps have a place. This whole channel is about pumping and breast pumps. Like, I am so grateful that we have them. What I don't like to see is when breastfeeding at the breast moms are adding in a pump for no reason other than Pinterest told them to do it. Does that make sense? So you do not have to pump on top of exclusively breastfeeding to have a good supply. Okay? Anyway, let's get back to the schedule. Okay. 5 a.m. breastfeed and pump. Okay? That's early. 7 a.m. breastfeed, 10 a.m. breastfeed and a pump for 10 minutes. 12 breastfeed, 2 breastfeed, 5 breastfeed, 8 breastfeed, 10 breastfeed, 10-minute pump, 1 a.m. breastfeed. Okay, I think this would be an appropriate schedule if there was a problem. If we were trying to increase an actual low milk supply or the baby was not gaining weight, we wanted more, I feel like this would be an appropriate schedule for that. The baby's likely not going to be breastfeeding on such a beautiful, even schedule because when you're feeding on demand, it just doesn't work that way. Even for moms going back to work, like we talk about this inside my program, you have to have a little bit of milk before you go back. Technically 1 day's worth, right? Usually moms want a little bit more in their freezer, and I think that's great. Just having that backup can really bring a lot of peace of mind. But this is a newborn schedule. Like, no. If breastfeeding's going well, don't mess with it, Focus on getting breastfeeding working, right? If we have to introduce the pump, we will, because we need to. But don't do it just because. Like, focus on breastfeeding. If you have goals to feed at the breast, a lot of working moms, especially that I see, end up using a pump to facilitate their breastfeeding goals. So you kind of have to pump because you're away from your baby for long periods during the day at work. Does that make sense? But most of these moms are actually wanting to feed at the breast. And even 3 pumps a day on top of breastfeeding feels like a lot to me. I definitely would not do that from the beginning. Everyone's kind of different, which is why I like working closely with moms to kind of figure out what you want. What are your goals? How are things going? A schedule like this kind of puts like breastfeeding and pumping as this is like the same. You're feeding. It's like all milk, but these are 2 very different things. Feeding at the breast and pumping they're different. Yeah, there's some suction. I mean, seriously, these are different things. So don't be adding that in sooner than you have to. What's this? Combine nursing and pumping schedule. Okay, so this account is called Have Twins First. So is this like a twin thing? Here's what the schedule says. 6 a.m. breastfeed, 7 a.m. pump, 9 a.m. breastfeed, 12 p.m. pump, 1 p.m. pump, 3 p.m. breastfeed, 6 p.m. pump, 10 p.m. breastfeed, 11 p.m. pump after baby sleeps, optional. I don't understand this at all. I have no idea why you would do this unless you had 2 babies. Well, then it wouldn't even look like this. Again, if you want to feed at the breast, then feed at the breast. Okay? Like, why are we adding in a pump here? Because the baby is breastfeeding at 9 a.m. and then 3 p.m. So they're going to have like 1 to 2 feeds between that. So you're pumping. Are you just going to directly feed them with the pumped milk? Like, you might as well just feed them at the breast. Also, I'm not going to stay up till 11 pumping and then have to get up at 6 to breastfeed. Ooh, here's a working mom's pumping schedule. Let's check this out. Okay. So 5:30 a.m. breastfeeding. Okay. 7 a.m. quick feed, leave for work. Okay. 9 a.m. pump, 12 p.m. pump. You could breastfeed if you could visit your baby, but a lot of people can't. 3 p.m. pump, 5:30 home and breastfeed, 8 o'clock breastfeed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 7 milk expressions or feedings in a day is actually a pretty good number. If you sneak in another one, like maybe you pump before bed, now you're at 8, I feel like that's a really good way to get a little bit of extra milk. I actually don't mind the schedule. If your work allows you to pump on such a consistent schedule, this could really work for you. If you can't feed before work, you might have to pump on the way to work, Don't forget to breastfeed when you get home at 5:30 because that is a common one that people skip on accident. But not every work job can accommodate something like this. If you work night shifts, if you're a teacher and you have classes and you really can't get like a 9 a.m. pump or whatever, then we have to adjust. And that's a lot of the stuff that we do inside my program, is really trying to figure out, okay, so based on your milk supply and your pump and your baby and your job and the requirements that you have there, how do we make this work for you and kind of maximize both your time and your milk output, right? Our goal really is to pump fast and efficiently because working moms don't have time to waste time, right? Power pumping, that's interesting. 20-minute pump, stop for 10, pump for 10, stop for 10, pump for 10. Okay. Do this 1 to 2 times for a couple of days to see results. If you actually want a power pump, I feel like that's a very standard power pumping schedule. Well, here's another exclusive pumping one. This one has 8 pumps a day till 3 months, then 7. At 11 months, they have you down to 3. I feel like that's more realistic. You know what I mean? The thing is that, actually, I just did another video on milk supply. We talked about a bunch of different scenarios, and I'll put that up top because it was really interesting. Because when you're exclusively breastfeeding, your milk supply looks different than it does if you are exclusively pumping. And if you are somewhere in between, like a lot of working moms are, your milk supply looks totally different too. So when I see schedules like this for exclusive pumpers, your milk supply is completely dependent on a pump. And oftentimes exclusive pumpers have an oversupply. And this is not a huge deal because you are expressing milk with a pump all the time anyway. So if you end up with extra, it's not really much of an inconvenience to you. Exclusive pumping is hard, so don't feel like I'm minimizing the effort that takes to do that. And that's not always the case, but I do see that a lot. When you're feeding at the breast, your milk supply is dependent on your baby, right? So your body's not going to make extra unless you tell it to make extra. So a lot of times exclusively breastfeeding moms they're just enoughers. They make just enough for their baby. If you induce an oversupply, you always have to manage that. You always have to express that milk, and that can be kind of annoying. For working moms, you're kind of in the middle, which is an annoying place to be. Sometimes it's managed by your baby and sometimes it's managed by a pump. And both things have to be working really well to make sure that it's appropriate, okay? It's also really common to only pump just enough milk because the baby's doing the work. Unfortunately, I see a lot of working moms where the pump is not working as effectively as it could, and so their milk supply suffers a little bit. And if that's you, please come talk to me. We can work together. We can fix this. But even if it's not, finding the time to pump at work is hard. But your milk supply is reliant on not only a good schedule, but also being able to remove the milk that's there. And I think that's the part that we're missing. So when you look at exclusive pumping schedules like this, take that into account, that these milk supplies look different than a working mom who's combining those two things. For a working mom, 7 a.m. feed, 9 a.m. pump, 12 p.m. pump, 3 p.m. pump, 6 p.m. feed. That's only 5. So that's definitely not enough. You're probably going to feed your baby before bed too, but even if you did that, that's only 6. Again, we're really shooting for 7. 7 is kind of like the magic number of milk expressions, either pumping or breastfeeding, to maintain your supply. So we got to put one more in there somewhere. I would personally do it feeding at the breast somewhere. But so here's another interesting one. 5 a.m. breastfeed, 10 a.m. pump. That's kind of a long time in between to let your breasts sit without emptying them. But okay, 1 p.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m. So you're like picking up the sessions in the afternoon. There's a little bit closer, a lot bit closer. 8 p.m. breastfeeding, 10 p.m. pump before bed. Okay, so they did hit 7. They got 7 in here. The spacing's a little wonky to me. So again, if this works for you, then cool. We usually have more milk in the mornings. Our prolactin levels are highest at night. So that's when milk production can really grow crazy. So pumping at night or breastfeeding at night can be really, really good for your milk supply. So anytime your baby has a sickness or they all of a sudden start waking up again in the night, I know it really sucks, but it can be really good for your milk supply. So I do like to encourage moms to drop the night session as soon as they can, because I think sleep is important. That is definitely not before 12 weeks though. I've already said that once, but I'll say it again. But I think it's good to be mindful of the breakdowns that you have in between milk expression sessions. Like there's a 5-hour gap here, followed by a 3-hour gap. And then you've got them two hours apart in the afternoons, when typically we tend to see lower milk outputs anyway. So I don't know. Maybe that's effective for that person, maybe not. Okay, so this is an interesting one. This looks like it's from someone who knows what they're talking about, okay? Their website is called craftymotherfather.com, and they're posting pumping at work schedules. So I'm actually just going to click through on this. I don't know this person, so hopefully I'm not. Okay, so just from this short little bio here, I clicked on her name. It says that this person is a mom blogger who helps first-time pregnant and postpartum moms find solutions to their everyday problems. So this schedule is made by someone that probably worked for her, and she put it online, right? Actually, a lot of these that I'm seeing are just someone, you know, I guess technically I'm just someone, but be careful of who you take advice from. Some of these graphics look really pretty, but just because something's pretty or it looks professional doesn't mean that this person has had any other experience aside from their own. The benefit of having a professional is that they are trained to know more about the general population. They're not just basing their information on their own personal experience. And that's what I see with a lot of these random blogs, these random graphics, is that they are just someone who did it once, right? And they are like, oh, that worked for me. I'm going to post it online. And see, this is hard. She's a twin mom, right? And so, but she posted something, nursing and pumping schedule for working moms. This is probably what she did, but this is not for everybody. And so I think that's where I want to leave you, is your schedule needs to fit your lifestyle, your goals, and be customized to you. Now, you don't necessarily need a professional to create that for you. You can do it yourself, but it can really help to have a second set of eyes, someone who knows more than just their own personal experience. Do you hear what I'm saying? If you need help creating a good schedule, I'm here and I can help you, especially for working moms who are combining breastfeeding and pumping. That tends to be the trickiest thing to navigate, right? That's why I have created a program to help. But honestly, and I did another video, I'm going to put another video up top for you on why, like personally, just having a good pumping schedule was not enough. There is more to pumping than finding a pumping schedule on Pinterest and just plugging in play. I kind of thought it was just a plug and play thing. I got a pump, I got the thing, put it on at the right times, and it just works. And it doesn't always work that way. In fact, it doesn't usually work that way unless the universe aligns and you just have tons of milk and it just works. But it may not work for very long. So a lot of times I see moms coming in at 1 month back to work. It went okay for the first couple weeks, and now it's really not. That honeymoon phase is over, where we were really banking on that milk supply that was created by your baby, and the pump is just not doing what it needs to do. So really don't be afraid to trust your mom intuition and do what works best for you. If you want the help of a professional that's both trained in lactation and specializes in pumping, that's me, right? And we have a team of experts waiting to help you. Tell me down in the comments what you liked the most, what stood out, what was wrong. Like, I'm open to learning, and your experience might look different than something I said, and that's fine too, okay? But tell me anyway. I love to learn, and I'm here with y'all. So, all right, we'll talk soon. Bye.